Welcome to this session. Thank you very much for joining me and seeing me writing some Flutter codes in 40 minutes. Today's session aim is to show you how easy it is to write some Flutter code, even though you don't probably know anything about it. How many of you know Flutter or have done Flutter before? Okay, so majority doesn't know. That's good. And so the session is mostly for you that really don't know Flutter or have not tried it. You've heard about it probably because it's like a hot topic these days. And my goal is to show you how easy it is to work with this framework. And you're not going to learn inside out of the framework in 40 minutes. That's impossible to show you. And you're not going to probably even understand some of the things that I'm doing very quickly. I'll explain everything. You get access to the code, you get access to the documentation, slides, and even the video probably later. So don't worry about anything. Just look at what I am doing, because I want to show you, if you go further and learn Flutter, how easy and productive you will be with Flutter. So, Flutter is nowadays a framework that compiles to 6 platforms. In fact, the app that now I'm building in 40 minutes-ish, together with you, can be compiled to 6 platforms right away. I mean, as soon as we're done, it's just a couple of commands and builds for Linux, Windows, whatever you want, and it's just gonna build for you. Because what we're gonna write today is not really platform specific. There is no platform specific features. It's just purely Dart and Flutter, so you can definitely compile that later to any other platform if you wish. And again, what I said in the beginning, my goal, this talk was planned maybe a year ago with organizers. And from the beginning, I said, if I come to this conference, I just want to show people like how productive you will be with this framework. And that was the reason I became like a Flutter developer back in 5 years ago, maybe. And that's the aim of this session. So this is what we're going to build today. Very simple. It's not really nice. I know that everyone says Flutter is helping you to build nice, beautiful application, blah, blah. But the goal is not showing you how beautiful you can create the stuff. The goal is to show you like how quickly you can build such a things, where maybe in other systems you need to spend more hours to set up the environment, the system, and everything else. So very simple application. Typical mobile application, at least. So let's focus on mobile. My simulator will be iOS simulator, one iPhone simulator, and when I build everything there. However, if you scan this QR code, you'll see the final result in an online editor named Zap, where you can actually, without setting up your environment, anything, you can actually write Flutter code and compile it on, and see it on web. So it's like purely browser-based editor for Flutter. So, and I copied everything to that, so you can follow the code and see the source code also on Zap if you wish. So I just put the code over there. And what we're gonna build here, let's just have a very quick plan. So it's going to be a mobile application, a home page, which has tabs, 2 tabs, home page, getting a Hacker News top stories, and another tab for profile, maybe 2 tabs, home page, let's call it. And then each of these Hacker News items you click or tap, and then it goes to a detail page, and you see more details. So a couple of network requests, page or like having routing and page, changing the page and different screens, using serializer for JSON, and these are like a typical workflow or the typical things that usually you do when you build mobile applications or any applications. You have network requests, you parse it, you convert it to whatever language you're doing to that object. In this case, we're going to convert it to Dart object, and you then build your screen. Very typical. So, I mean, I think it's 60% of probably what we do in our daily work. So, well, let me introduce myself. A short story about it. My name is Majid. I am head of DevRel at Invertase, and the company behind the editor that you're actually opening, so we built that editor. And I'm a Google developer expert for Flutter and Dart, as well as a community lead in Flutter community. So that's the tools I mentioned. You probably by now open that. If you have not, then this is the URL, zap.run. You're going to start playing around with Flutter. This is Flutter Web particularly, but anyway, it's Flutter code. You can play around without downloading any SDK or anything like that. But I need to give you a quick overview for those you really don't know Flutter. At least before I start, we are in the same page what I'm talking about. In Flutter, well, we say everything is a widget. How many of you are coming from web background or have done front end? So many of you. You're familiar with the concept of component, perhaps. Who doesn't know what's component? So component means like you're building a small piece and you're trying to then, having these small pieces together to build bigger things, a page or whatever. So in Flutter, instead of component, we name them widget. You can just translate to your language like as components. So who can tell me how many components we have, types of components, usually in front end? No, it's two types of component. Either the components are stateless, they just render something, or they are having some states. What we call it in front end, we say dumb component and a smart component, or whatever name you want to say that, right? And in Flutter is exactly the same. So you have smart widgets, which they hold states, and they change the state, and when you change the state, the component is re-rendering, and that's a stateful widget. And there are dumb widgets or dumb components in front-end language, and those are the components that usually, or widgets that usually they don't hold any state, they just build what you give them. That's it. Very dumb. So this is exactly two types, and there are a couple of examples here in this slide. And with these small widgets, you're technically like front-end. What you do, if you do React or any other type of front-end framework, so you're building a widget tree, right? Or a component tree, or DOM tree, or whatever you want to call it. So in Flutter, you do the exact same thing. You build a widget tree. So you have a root on the top. That's your application, and the widgets are starting from there. So I'm trying to tell you the concept is similar. The naming is different. So then don't panic when you come to Flutter. It's exactly the same concept. Nothing is different. And with Flutter, there are many of these pre-built components or widgets, a correct wording, are available to you to use. If you want to start like building a mobile application, you start with scaffolding a page. Scaffolding usually structures the layouting of a page. It gives like the theming and everything, to the application. The scaffold is coming as a widget. And there is like top app bar on the top. That's a widget, app bar. If you want to render a text, you have a widget, text. So you put the text a string, and the text is rendering your text. You have column to make these column of widgets. So you can compose these widgets together. So imagine you want to build a page that has 3 rows. So these 3 rows, each of rows are a column named exactly row. And to have them right after each other on a screen, then you have to have a column name, you have to have a widget named column. So a column will have rows, you know, and other widgets. You're composing these widgets together to create your application. So it's 10 minutes already. I spoke about that. 30 minutes. Let's see how it goes. So let's get started. So I already have to save some time. You need to download SDK. Whatever platform you are on, you just go to flutter.dev, install /doc/install. Then you'll find SDK for your platform. It's just one single click, download, install. That's it. Nothing else you need to do. Everything will be sorted out automatically by the SDK. So I already have done that. And so once you've done that, if I find my mouse, here it is. Once you've done that, then you can create a project. Flutter comes with a CLI that helps you to build a lot of things. So here is pretty big here. Here is my command here. So I already have done that. So Flutter create, is it not visible? There you go. And give it a folder name, whatever you want to. That's it. So Flutter will generate the scaffolding or the basic project for you. That's what I have done here. I just removed the comments and some extra things which usually comes with the skeletons. And this is the file under the lib folder. Let's get familiar with the folder structure very quickly. When you start with a pure Flutter application, there's 3 things that you need to know in the beginning. First, you come with pub/spec.yaml file. If you're coming from any other language, there is always usually a single file to get the dependencies and dev dependencies, metadata, and so on and so forth. Package.json and so, you know, in JavaScript, for example. Similar one, it's a YAML file for Dart projects, pub/spec.yaml file. In fact, there is a repository named pub.dev, which all these packages are hosted there. Pub is similar to npm, for example, you know. So that's the first thing. So we're going to add all of our dependencies over there and whatever else that we need. And then you're going to have folders, Windows, Web, Linux, iOS, Androids, Mac OS. These are the platforms that Flutter needs in order to compile your Flutter application. Do you need them? I mean, if you don't need any of these platforms, just simply delete the folder. That's it. It doesn't hurt your application. If you need them, keep them there. Do you need to go to this folder to do anything? No. You don't need them. So you just need to take a look at the lib folder. That's where you are going to start building your application. And you're just going to deal with Dart language. You don't know Dart language, don't worry about it. In 2 minutes, I'll onboard you. Because many of you have done web. You're probably familiar with TypeScript and JavaScript. TypeScript developers? Almost everyone. So then in 2 minutes, I'll onboard you to Dart. That's it, as simple as this. So you have the lib folder. There you go. And usually it comes with main.dart. That's the main file to start with, right? And then you can start building other things. The other files that you see I created, these are just placeholder of what we're going to create today together. They're all empty. Nothing is there. I just created to save some time. That's it. And so then you start with main.dart. In any Dart language, 2 minutes, let's get familiar with Dart language. So in any Dart project, if you want to have an executable file or a file that can run your code, you need to start with a main function. Everything inside main function will be executed. Everything outside that will not be executed. Therefore, in Flutter, there is one main function which is in main.dart. One main. And everything will go under that. There is no other main in Flutter. So that's it. That's what first thing. Second thing. The type, other type languages, or in particular TypeScript, you usually have the type after your variable with two dot dot separating that, right? In Dart, you write your type before variable, that's it. There is just a space between type and your variable, your function, whatever. If this type comes before a function, means this is a return type. That's it. Because the main function doesn't return anything, well, the type is void. Simple. And there is one more thing I can show you right now. Let's say I want to define a variable in this class before we get started. So the final keyword is similar to const keyword in TypeScript. Final means assign a variable and never change it again. That's as simple as this. And then you have a type. Let's say I want a string, and I want to say a name, while conf, and I assign my string. That's a simple syntax. Your keyword, your type, your variable name, and the value that you want to assign. This is 50% of Dart so far. So, and in Flutter, there is one run app function where you assign your first or the main root of your project, your application, the very main one. For example, here I create the stateless widget. So you probably are familiar with the syntax of class and extends. Who is not familiar with this concept? Okay. So we're creating a class that is extending a stateless widget. So I'm creating everything is a state, as I said. And then I'll pass this to run. This means, hey, Flutter engine, this is my application. Please start rendering and building that for me. That's it. Do you need to do anything else here? No. That's it, done, leave it. From now on, we're gonna start building our widget tree. Let's do that quickly. So in any stateless and a stateful widget, there is always a build method. The build method is where Flutter engine knows what to build and paint on render on the screen. So technically here, I'm telling to Flutter right now, this is my root of application. So I want to start with material app. In Flutter, there are different types of theming and styling. Depends on which platform you want to focus. You can use them. Like if you are very into iOS only, maybe you can use Cupertino app. If you want Linux, there is one package for that. If you want some Windows, there is a package for that. But Material app, it's based on Material Design from Google, and it comes with so many pre-built components or widgets where you really don't need to invent them again. And I strongly recommend you to start with that because material widgets are so configurable or customizable. If you need a button, you have different type of button. Of course, the basic setup is based on material design. You may not want that, but they are very customizable. You can change them to any design as you wish. So my recommendation is to start with Material app. And I think almost in the last 5 years, I have never seen any other application that has started with anything else. So let's learn the syntax again, 2 minutes. So we're going to do Material app, and this is a class, right? I'm going to teach you how to read Flutter code, even though you absolutely don't know anything and you don't know where to find documentation. Documentation in Flutter is under your hand. Just go to this class. You'll find everything that you need. So you see, this is a constructor. This is a class where it comes with all of these properties or parameters. If you don't know what they are, you can simply go to the definition of them and take a look at that. I'm not going to go through all of this, but my point here is that each widget comes with a full documentation So where you can just read that over there. But let's learn the syntax. Again, maybe 20% more of Dart if you want to learn. So these curly braces in a class means I'm going to define named parameters. So named parameters will show up in your application as this. Imagine you have like an object in TypeScript, right? So usually in your parameters, you define your object because it's more, it's named, right? So you have your object, you can pass the name and pass the value. It's very easy. This is similar here. So in fact, if I go now to name, this is saying this home, it comes to this curly braces. That means it's referring to a local variable somewhere is defined, like for example this one. And it also gives the type. So what does it mean? That means I can come here and search for the exact same, and the compiler, the analyzer is helping me to quickly complete this. So you see, if I just search N or whatever, I get everything that is available over there. So that's name parameters. Usually we use them. The reason is it's kind of self-documented as well, right? So you don't really need to know what you need to pass in the first position or second position or so on. You just say, oh, I want to pass actually home page. I already have done that. And this is going to be this widget. That's it. OK, so we start with the scaffold, as I mentioned. And I already started with scaffold. Sounds good, right? So, and a scaffold is probably one of those exceptions widgets that they don't accept really child, they accept a body. Because the scaffold is accepting your, is generating your layout structure. Sounds good. So what does it mean? It means I can now come here and say I need an app bar on top of my application. And in Flutter, usually what you speak in English, you can find them as a widget. If you say I need an app bar, you'll find an app bar class, and you can pass it here. And that's an app bar here. So I just need to pass maybe a title, let's say. And a title I want to pass is just, let's see, I don't know what I need to pass. I can take a look and say title is a widget. All right, so title usually is a text. So I'm just going to pass a text. I'm saying text, and I find text. That's it. Text is a class, and I pass now my text. Hello. So, and because I need to remove this, don't worry about that const. I'm not going to confuse you. So now I got an app bar on top. Nice. Another thing that you can do with Flutter quickly is theming. That's the reason you have the material app. Material is actually enforcing the theming also to all of your widgets. So the implementation and the theming of the widgets are different, and that's also a good practice to keep it that way. Always get your theming from the theme. So what I can do here, I can actually go and say I need a theme, and well, I mean, again, I don't know how I should do that, but I see in the definition it says there is actually a theme data. The question mark after the type means this could be null. Dart is a sound null type safe, which means if you want to say this is null, you need to explicitly say that. Otherwise, if you say this is a theme data, compiler requires you to pass that. You cannot pass null. So it's pretty safe. So then here in this case, So I'm going to just change my theme data, right? So it was in the documentation. There are so many, again, things here. I can go and read one by one. I'm not going to do that right now for you, but I'm going to show you how quickly you can take a look at that. So what I'm going to just change here, I'm just going to change the primary switch color, the main swatch color, the main color of the entire application. So let's change it. The main color was actually, okay. So the colors, well, what you do in front end, you just have a hex code, you copy and paste your hex code, or maybe you have an RGB and stuff like that. So in Flutter, you need to do it a bit different. So in fact, colors are coming with an enum named colors as well. These are the default colors. You can also define your own colors. So I have a list of colors here, so I can just change it to like amber, and that's pretty much it. Let me also quickly fix this. And look at this. This was on purpose. My compiler, my analyzer is actually complaining about something here. In my editor with VS Code, you can also do the same with IntelliJ as well, and also Android Studio. There is no difference. You can ask, what is the problem and how can I fix it? And it says, well, there's a problem here with const modifier. Don't worry about that again. I'm not gonna, this is mainly means, well, this is a constructor that will not change in compile, in runtime. So it tells compiler to optimize it as much as possible because it's static. So I'm just gonna tell that, okay, add that and add this because these are not gonna change. And look at this. I saved and it's fixed the color on the screen. This is what we call it in Flutter, hot reload. Hot reload means I save, you see, less than a second. It's like a blink of an eye. And then another thing that I want to add here is in the main application that I show you, there was actually a button, navigation button. I'm going to just add that again here as a property. There will be a navigation button. Am I in the right class? Let me just do it here. A scaffold, sorry. Button navigation. And again, I don't know how to use that. Don't worry about it. Again, you have the documentation under your hand. You just go to there and take a look at the examples probably where they are. So you can simply find them here, you see? And that's what I'm gonna do here. So the navigation bar is telling me that I can have like these navigation button bars in my application. To save some time, I'm just quickly copy and paste to class and I'll explain that. So technically, this is going to be, based on the documentation, a button navigation bar. And by default, even compiler tells me that, you see, items argument is required. You don't know, but analyzer is telling you. Just take a look at that and add that. So you need to add a list of button navigation. And these are the item class that you can pass an icon. Icon is a class, and you pass your icons, whatever. It could be SVG or anything else, and a label. Just gonna save this. Well, of course, this needs also a const modifier before here. And look at this. When I save, so everything, it will be formatted and, you know, nicely appearing on my editor as well. So in fact, linting, formatting, analyzing, everything comes with Flutter SDKs. You don't need to install anything at all. So you just go ahead and write your code. And now I get these two navigation buttons here. So let's do quickly a network request and just show a list of Hacker News items. There are two APIs here. So this is the official one, but it's a little bit more work to work with this API because it just gives you ID and then you need to go and fetch each of them, and so it's a little bit of work. But there is another API built by some Googlers for PWA demonstration stuff, which is much nicer and easier. It just aggregates the data and gives you this. So this is a single news, and this is a list of news. So in fact, I'm just gonna copy this and start fetching this and rendering that into my application. Let's take a look at that, how quickly I can do that. So I built an API, sorry, here. I built an API Dart class here. Just a simple service class, which I need to inject it to anywhere that I want to call any method. You can do that even in the widget, not a problem, but it's not a good practice. So it's better to like abstract your business logic and data layer to another layer, not the widget layer. Even in other application, you would do that, right? So what we're gonna do here is simple. I'm just gonna get latest news or get latest news. So what do we want to do? We just want to fetch a URL, a JSON API, parse it, and then pass it to our UI and render a list of items. Very typical scenario, right? So again, I'm just gonna save some time because we are not on time. So here it would be let's see what is happening right now. So I made a method that is going to parse my URL or my API. So far, similar to what we're doing. And then I need an HTTP client. Okay, Flutter doesn't come with that, but there is a package for that. Let's see how I'm adding that quickly. So in fact, in my editor, I can just search for add dependency. Okay, when you install Flutter, you need to install in your editor Flutter plugin as well, whether it's IntelliJ or VS Code. If you do that, then you get this for free. So then I see there is actually add dependency and dev dependency. What am I looking for? I'm looking for a package that make HTTP request. So I'm just gonna go to add dependency and search for HTTP. I found a bunch of them. I don't know which one is, like you don't know which one is better. That's fine. You can take a look at pop.dev and check the documentation, but I can tell you right now at least. That's the reason I'm standing here. HTTP is the one that you're looking for making HTTP request. Once you do that, what is happening is it goes to pub/spec YAMLfile and add that as a dependency and fetch this package, which means now I can simply come here and another syntax that I want to show you. For importing a package, you can simply just say import and start with the package and the name of the package and the main file, which is going to be HTTP. Okay, this imports everything. By default in Dart, everything that is not private, which usually it's not private, it's public, will be exposed. But to make it not like pollute your entire file, I can have a placeholder name for that. I can say whatever here will go under HTTP. In fact, now I can come here and create my client. This step is not necessary. You can directly call http.get for getting the request, but I'll make this client because I want to show you can manipulate your client and pass the headers and authentication headers and so on and so forth. You don't need to do that every time you're making a request. So what we're going to do here, and that's another things I want to show you quickly. You'll see that in Flutter quite a lot as well. So HTTP, and that's client. You see, the variable that I define right now, it comes with underline. Underline in Dart means private. That's it, seemed. So it's 5% more of Dart code. And then the client gets this URL. So what you get is a respond type, right? And the respond would have a body. And the body is a string, right? So you need to decode this to a JSON, to a map. My analyzer is helping me. JSON decode is the function that you can pass this a string and get the map or an object back. So I'm just going to import this, and then I now have this. So here is the problem. I get this, and the type will be dynamic. Because, well, Dart doesn't know what you are decoding. It just knows that now it turned it to an object. It's your turn to turn it to a Dart object. In order to do that, So you just need to create a model. I already named that feed item. Just gonna do my model here. So I want to pass my JSON, my map, which I decoded, to this object, and then turn it to a Dart object. That's it. This is simple. So let's see how I can do that. Again, to save some time, I already have created something for you, and I will just here, because writing these parameters just takes so much time. Let's take a look at this. What are these variables? These are, in fact, the data that you are receiving. These are these parameters. That's it, properties from your object. I'm just going to define them as a variable into my Dart object, which is feed item in this case. And I put them into a curly braces into my constructor. In Dart, constructor and class name are the same thing, same name. So when you see feed item as a class and feed item in the body of that, that means this is a constructor. So constructor is going to get then this.it. And you see when I click on each of them, my editor is referring to something in here as a variable. And I see this is actually a string. Some of them are required because you can't really have them null. And that's ID title. How do I know these are required? In fact, in this documentation, there was already a TypeScript class. I'm turning that interface that probably is now familiar to TypeScript developers to a Dart object. So I'm saying this is a number, and this telling me that ID cannot be null. Therefore, here I say this is going to be an integer. Number in Dart will be integer. Float will be float as well. So then I'm going to say there is no question mark, nothing. But the points, if you look at this here, the points is number or null. So here, instead of or null, I just say integer question mark. Means this can be null. That's it. All right. And the rest of the things. So in Dart, you can create another factory to do something else if you want with that class. Another constructor. And that's usually named factory. So let's take a look at that. Factory means this is going to be a type of constructor where you pass something and you return this Dart object with some business logic, some change. All right? So, but take a look at that. What I can do here, I can actually return like exactly this class, feed item, and because I have the JSON and I know ID is going to be there, I pass it like that. So now that ID from map will be assigned to an ID as a Dart object. But this is so cumbersome. This is so error prone as well. What if there is a null? What if it's enum? What if it's another type of class? What if? It just takes so much time. So Dart, this is another 10% of Dart and Flutter. I'm telling you right now. Comes with code generation. So code generation helps you to get away from these repetitive things that you need to do. For example, turning a JSON or a map to a Dart object. Or the other way around. Your Dart object needs to be a JSON because you need to pass it to your backend, for example. Exactly the same thing I'm doing here. So you have a library for that. In order to do code generation, you need two libraries, at least one for generating the code, and based on what you want to do, that other package. In this case, what I do need here, I need to have a library that helps me to generate this file. Let's take a look at that quickly. So I'm going to add a dev dependency. To run this code generation, you need a package named build runner. So that's first thing. You have done that already there. And another thing that you need is another package to help this is JSON serializable. This package is going to help you to generate this code that you need. So I'm just going to quickly add that. JSON serializable needs another package for your Flutter application, and that's annotation. So I'm going to add that and show you what is this annotation. It's very familiar with the concept of, one of the concepts that I'm pretty sure you know. I'll add it and I'll ask what is that. So JSON annotation. I will add that as the dependencies. What it happens is, now I'm going to go here and I do two-step in this file. Let's see. I would say that I'm going to create the same file name, like model.dart, it was the name, .g.dart. That means this is going to be generated. So, and it will be part of this file. So everything in that file will be part of this file. The reason that you don't have this is because it's not generated yet. All right. And then I'll add this annotation. If this is very familiar with some of the concepts in JavaScript and TypeScript. Who can tell me what is that? Decorators. This is like decorators. They just take care of some stuff for you. You don't need to take care of that. So just add this annotation here, and then you import that from the package. That's it. So what I'm going to do now, I'm just going to go to my application, and I say, Flutter pop run build runner build. Let me just make it bigger. That's the syntax, as simple as this. Now, if I run this, I hope there is no error. There is, okay. So then build runner is going to take care of finding this annotation and generating the code that it's supposed to do. You don't know the behind the scenes, that's fine. Okay, now if you look at this, the problem here is solved. And I also have this file generated. Let's take a look at the generated file. What we wanted to do manually, assign the variable from JSON to this arguments. It's already done by the code generation, and it's already taking care of the null safety part of it. So that's pretty much it. So every time now you change something in this model, you need to run build runner, and you're done. This is, again, 10% more of Dart and Flutter. You see that quite a lot. And one last thing we want to do, we're just going to, now we have this feed item, which was that class that we generated, and list means an array. This is going to be an array of these items. I'm just going to go and import this from model. So what I'm going to do here, I know that the decoded, it gives me, when I decode it, it gives me a list of map. And I just want to iterate over that with map and say each item, feed item from JSON, the function or the factory that we define, pass this item, and at the end, make it as a list. That's it. So now let's render that in the application. So I'm just going to go to my home page. Sorry, here. Just going to go to this page. And what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to render a list of items that are coming from an asynchronous call. So the simplest solution that you can start with, and it comes with Flutter itself, is using something called feature builder. Feature builder means, feature in Dart means promise. So it's something that is coming, asynchronous, coming later. So I'm just going to use feature builder. And it tells me that you need to have a builder. All right, I'm just going to do that. So even Analyzer is helping me to automatically fix that. So it says the function that you're going to have for builder, in fact, is going to be having one context and one snapshot. A snapshot will hold your data that will come from asynchronous data. Okay, sounds good. And lastly, what I'm going to do, I just need to return something to render. Let's just return. At the moment, nothing. Nothing or an empty container or in front end div it's similar to container in Flutter. So that means a div. And you can do literally everything with container, turn it to anything that you want. So at this point, the only thing I need to do is to give it my feature, my request. And that's going to be my API service and get latest. That's it. So every time now I come to this page, news page, where do I need to use this? I'm just going to go in home page. And for now, not home page, let me go to main. And for now, instead of this body, I'm just going to use news. So now every time I come here, now it's gone, but there's nothing here. We still have not rendered anything. It's just a container. It will just fetch the data and show the data. But what do we want to do? What do you receive? A list of items, right? So you need a list to render, a widget to render this list, right? Again, in Flutter, whenever you talk about something in English, you probably find a name for it or a widget for it. I'm talking about list. In fact, there is a list. It's list view builder. And it comes again with a builder, means, okay, what it happens, list builder is going to iterate over your list, pass an index of the item to the builder. You can grab it from the list, like it's index 1, 0, whatever, and Dart is 0 index in list, so it's similar to other languages. So grab that, get the item, and render it. Let's do that quickly together. So I'm just going to render for now just the ID at this point, nothing else. So I'm just going to return a text, which is going to be, okay, what I'm going to do here, or even here. Okay, Lizzie, if every time, that's a tip, every time you find these parentheses, in Dart, it happens a lot, especially in Flutter, because it's like declarative. You see a lot of parentheses at the end. To make it a bit nicer, you just add one semicolon, one comma, and then you get this formatted like that. That's the trick. So every time you see so many parentheses, just add one comma after each other. 3 more minutes, we render this, and we're done. So let's do that. And in fact, after 3 minutes, it means we are 50 minutes, right? So that's good. What we're going to do now, we have the snapshot already here, right? Snapshot. And a snapshot comes with so many things. And one of the things is if it has data. It's good to see if it has data. If there is any error, it's nice to render something else, right? So let's check that. If it has data, so let's see the if statement in Dart. If, that's the thing. And you need to make sure you return at least something for this, otherwise it threw an error. So if there is a data, render builder, but if there is nothing, just maybe render a container for now, nothing. Okay? So that's the last step. Let's find the item. So I'm just going to go and define my item. It's going to be a snapshot.data. So .data means a list of feet that we already gave it here. And one more thing that I should do, and it's good to do in list view, usually you define your item count, a list of items that you want to render something for that. So here I'm going to say items dot, oh sorry, this is going to be items dot lengths. So now compiler is complaining because the data could be null, right? So to make sure, what we know after this if, we definitely have data, right? To say to compiler that I am 100% sure the data will not be null, even though I already said it will be, you can just use exclamation mark. And the compiler is now satisfied because you took the responsibility. You said, I know, it will not be null. That's fine, good. So now I have the list of items. And here I have the index. Now I need the item, and it will be item index. I'm just going to go and here say item. See, my compiler already knows this is a Dart object. Just going to go and say a title. So now, there we go. These are all the titles. So if to just show you quickly, if I reload, that's actually rendering the titles. It's not really nice. I'm not sure if you want to stay 2 more minutes. I want to add one more thing to UI to see how easily you can modify this. So in fact, you can change this list view builder to list view separated. Separated means now you can have a separator between these items. So you're going to go and define your separator builder. That's going to be this, and I will just return. Okay, to do that, I can, like in HTML, what you do, you just say an HR and give you a line. But in Flutter, you need to have maybe a container with a size, or maybe another widget. There is another widget that I'm going to introduce to you, and that's going to be sized box. Size box is so minimal, and it just gets height and width. Just going to give it a height of 1, and probably, or maybe more. I mean, 1 is not really. Now you see it's changing something here. But here is the thing. Because I want to give that a color, I don't think sizebox actually accepts a color. No, it doesn't. But I change this to container, and I give it a color, and I get my color from theme, because I want to make sure that is coming as, I can give it a color like green, but it stays there forever green. If you change the theme color, it's not going to change it here. So the way that you get that from theme, you say my theme of context means get it from the tree. There will be something. This is like a kind of dependency injection. Get it from there. And there will be, well, some colors, primary color. There you go. One more thing, let's add it here. You want to add a padding here. It's not really nice. There's no padding here. I don't like that. You can actually do a padding here. If you want to do a padding, well, in, say, CSS, you just say padding, blah, 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 blah. But in Flutter, everything is a widget, right? You wrap this with a padding widget and just give the padding sorry. Where did I go? News. OK, there you go. So just give that a padding, and it will add a padding here. Even to the text, I can add a padding, wrap it with a padding. That's changing the padding. Why did we do that? Last thing, and then you're gone. You can go and grab your coffee. If I now change my color from amber to green, everything will change to green, even though that's one that I get from. All right, so we didn't get time to create another page, but in fact, another page is as simple as defining your route in the material. You just need to say, this is my routes, and you define your map, give it a name, like this going to be, for example, the home page, and another page will be like / blah, blah, and it's going to be another page. And then you can push and create a stack of pages, as simple as that. So Navigator is also part of Flutter, at least Navigator 1. There are 2 types of navigators. So, well, of course, I talked a lot and also code. But if you just don't talk and code, have your headphone, coffee, and start coding, it will be much faster, because I tried it last night again, and I could finish it in 30 minutes, but now it took longer. But again, in the beginning I mentioned, this is going to be just an inspiration. So you didn't know about Dart, but I told you 60%, 70% of Dart already. So if you know the name parameter and the typing, you're good to go. This is mostly Flutter code that you will see. And in Flutter, when you talk English, you'll find a widget in English. Just type it in your editor, you'll find it. and then read the documentation, pass the parameters that you need to pass, and it will render it for you as quickly as that. You get access to the, I already showed you in the, where is the presentation? There we go. So you get access to the code here. You can take a look at the other models that I created, and the rest is actually similar. I just created another model, fetched another things, and just have another page. Exactly the same thing, the different pages that I created. Good luck creating your Flutter application. Ping me on any social media that you can find me, and show me how quickly you could build a Flutter application. Hopefully after this session you can do that very quickly. And if you have any question later, I'll be around here at least today, and later you can find me very easily on the internet. I just search my name and I'm everywhere almost. So thank you very much. I hope you enjoyed the session.